Are Americans ever meant to be happy? A few months ago, my Twitter feed looked a lot different. And yes, I still call it Twitter and not X. Mauricio Pochettino, by far the biggest name, by far the man with the most experience, and by far the one with the most reputation, takes the role as the head coach of the US men's national team. And my feed was full of what the a kilometer and eagle making sounds over American flag videos. I don't know why, but I always find American culture around football, and I won't call it football because that's just what we call it, but soccer, I always find that on the surface level for the general population, the interest in football for the entire nation is just fake. Where like most things in American culture, it all comes down to capitalist greed, trying to force advertisements down your throat at all times and charge you the most money for the least entertainment possible. That is what we saw in this international break, the Nations League. Now, this isn't just in the EU, it's also in CONCACAF, where the likes of Mexico, Canada, USA, Panama, Costa Rica, many other nations, Jamaica was involved in this competition. The final four, Panama versus USA, and Canada beat Mexico. Now, the important thing to keep in mind here is one thing. The World Cup is held in the US alongside Canada and Mexico, but US will of course be the main draw and the main brand for it, of course, obviously, because that is where you'd imagine the most money. And I also spoke something along the lines of this when I spoke about my Inter Miami Messi video as well. So comment down below your thoughts on the state of the US men's national team. Like, subscribe, and Vizeh Designs for the best prints all made by myself. Link down below, top of the description. Let's get into it. So here we go, the Mauricio Pochettino era has begun. Semi-final of what is a trophy for the USA against Panama, who they've had a lot of very tough games and tough results against them. They're somewhat become somewhat of a rival of them because they just keep on getting the better of the USA, and they really shouldn't be considering their resources. It was Panama that beat them in the recent Copa America that sent them out of the tournament. It was Panama that knocked them out of the last Gold Cup. And when they had the opportunity to avenge with the first game under a brand new manager, who's a big name, who's brought high expectations, this was the turnout. A pathetic showcase and reality of the public interest into the sport in America. Now, this isn't me saying that America doesn't care about football at all, but definitely nowhere near in comparison to other sports. And alongside that, the money that they charge for these type of games, people just don't care enough to pay the money that they charge. We're speaking hundreds of dollars here at a time. Panama beat them in the 90th minute with a winner. You would have seen clips online of the man who scored the winner running over to Thierry Henry, celebrating with him, calling him his idol. That is a really incredible moment. They're probably quite lucky that happened because people talked more about that than how embarrassing it was for America. But they did have an opportunity to redeem themselves. They had the third place game, and it wasn't against a team like Jamaica, it was against Canada, who is again another rival of theirs in the region, and they've typically always been better than Canada at sports, and particularly historically at football. So are they going to redeem themselves again in Poch's second game? No, they lost again. And yes, no one turned up. By the words of US legend Landon Donovan, I'm so sick of hearing how talented this group of players is and all the amazing clubs they play for. If you aren't going to show up and actually give a shit about playing for your national team, decline the invite. Talent is great, pride is better. And this is the general feeling towards the national team by many people in America, from the normal everyday person to the higher ups and the legends that played for them before. Every person on a CBS panel, including Thierry Henry, said the same thing. There is a massive disconnect and discontent between the group of players, between the national team, between your executives and the organization and the fan base. No cohesion, no one really knows what's going on, and no one really cares. But lo and behold, this is where the World Cup will be in a year's time. Now, is it as simple as the results? They're not really that good. Maybe Americans are, maybe they're a bit egotistical that they expect to be the best at everything, so when there's a sport that they're not that good at, they just don't care anymore. Well, I mean, I think that could be a factor. Of course, I do believe Americans are a bit more into, they just don't care unless they win, a bit more than maybe other nations, but that's just due to their culture. The US team for many years has fallen short of expectations. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I can almost compare it to the Leeds effect in the championship. Leeds are the biggest team in the championship, okay? I mean, that's just my opinion anyway. And when teams play against Leeds in the championship, this is a fact. any Leeds fans will tell you, most fans will tell you if they're honest, right? Teams get up for it more. Fan bases get up for it more. There's a bit more on the line when you play against the Leeds because it is a bigger club and you think they're gettable because they are still in the same league as you, but you know that it's a bigger game than if you played against, for example, Oxford, or you played Plymouth. You just know. So when you got a Canada, a Panama, a Jamaica, a Trinidad and Tobago, and even Mexico, when they play against USA, it means more to them to beat them. And the issue with the US men's national team, from what I can figure, because most players, for a good amount, plays in Europe and plays for some pretty good teams in Europe as well in the top leagues, it feels like they've got nothing to prove to anyone. And it feels like they've already feel like they've made it in a way. So they don't, I just get the feeling that they don't try as hard. It doesn't matter as much. They don't seem to match the same fight as their opponents, the same work ethic, the same drive, and they definitely not got the same team spirit. And a big problem with this is the media, of course. The main reason why there's this expectation is that we had for many years that this would be the golden generation of US football, where the reason is because many big players are playing at big clubs in Europe, because historically most US players in the past maybe played in Premier League or so, the likes of Tim Howard, likes of Landon Donovan, likes of Clint Dempsey, but never really got to the top Champions League level. Why was Poch brought in the first place? Well, because he does have the experience and has the reputation that he can bring a team together, and because he was well known, especially at Spurs, from forming a young group of players and forming them to have that cohesion, to inspire them to be more of a team. The main issue is it's international football, and you're only really with these players for only a couple of weeks in a couple of months. It's really hard to really form that bond. This next World Cup for the history of football in America is so vital. They have to do well. The money that's put into this, hopefully if they do well, can inspire people and build an infrastructure where they can bring a new generation of American players in a couple of years' time. When there was a 2002 Korea-Japan World Cup, how well Korea did in that tournament, no one thought they'll do that well, and then they made it to a semi-final. That feeling of pride in your nation and wanting to do something special, that means a lot, and it goes a long way. Can they do the same thing? But here we are in a situation. Pochettino, 2 losses on home soil, and barely anyone was even there to know or care about it. The one thing I will say though is that when I look at the American team just on paper, or at least the team that was put out against Panama or against Canada, I don't really think the team's really that good on paper. They are missing some players. You're missing likes of Anthony Robertson that was not there, but Pulisic is of course the one that everyone talks about, but Musa, Dest, Robinson, McKennie, they're not bad players, but realistically, I just don't think as a team they're that great anyway. Which therefore lies this mismatch of expectation to what is actual reality. And for that reason is why people in America typically, for the most part, just don't really care. And if you keep trying to charge them over the top to see it, then this is what you're going to get. And one key thing here is that there's a severe lack of competitive games that America will go through before they come to that World Cup. The CONCACAF Gold Cup is really the only competitive games they're going to have before the World Cup happens in over 400 days. And yes, they may have Poch to have an extended camp with more of the players during this time period, but there's one main issue here. The FIFA Club World Cup, including Juventus and including Borussia Dortmund's the likes of Timothy Weah, Weston McKennie, Gio Reyna, they will be missing some key players for that only time they actually have some competitive games going on. And then after that, they've only got 4 other international time windows where they could have September, October, November, and March in 2026 to have some pre-season World Cup friendlies. That's not a lot of time actually to really change much of a team. And don't get me started on the entire US pay-to-play system that is basically a leech that has put itself into the entire youth system in America. I can't believe this is actually a thing, but I can believe it because it's America and they love to make money out of things that is not necessary. Thousands of families in the US pay thousands of dollars to keep their kids in elite level academies. So yeah, no wonder why people are not bothering. So yeah, comment down below your thoughts on the state of the US men's national team. It's not looking good. And with a World Cup there in a year's time, the seats will be fully sold. That will be almost a guarantee. But will America be there to really enjoy it? We'll find out. Comment down below your thoughts on the US men's national team. What's next for them? Like, subscribe for any football prints. Link down below Vizeh Designs. And I'll see you next time. Peace.